All right, 201, let's get rolling here. Thanks everybody for joining us today. My name is Will Rouse. I am the sales director here at AVAIL. I am joined today by my colleague and founder of AVAIL, Randall Stevens. I'll probably be doing a lot of the talking today, but ask Randall to join in the end in case there are any product questions or anything about some of the things that we're going to be working on in the near and long term of Avail. So let's get going here. Just a quick recap on the agenda, what we'll be discussing today. I intended to discuss broadly topics around fit. Is Avail a good fit for any particular firm? What are some of the characteristics of fit? How do you determine that? How do you trial our software? And how do you think about onboarding and continuing education? And also, a big topic for 18 months has been content catalog and, basically, should you pay for a content management solution in general? So we'll cover that at the end. But first, I'll start with like a little mini case study. So I have been working at Avail for basically 6.5 years. And in my role, I get the opportunity to talk to firms of all different sizes and at this point, all over the world. So when I talk to companies about Avail and they come and they ask us questions or we ask them questions, a lot of times I tell them I've helped one single guy buy a seat of Avail, and I've helped like companies the size of AECom buy thousands of seats in Avail, and then everything in between. And so we ask a lot of questions and we get asked a lot of questions. But what I wanted to start this presentation discussion on was just this idea about where's all my stuff. And this is actual information that I gathered from a company that was interested in Avail and interested in content management as a strategy, as a solution. And we asked them some simple questions, and I ask a lot of firms these questions like, where are your things? What are your things, and where are your things? And what you see here, we have two cloud-based content management solutions, industry standards, Unify and Open Asset. We've got three discrete locations on a corporate network with your Rhino models, SketchUp models, and 3ds Max models. You've got a intranet, so a URL, web-based place that people go for training and onboarding content. And then you've got the typical detail library, which is housed, basically inside of a Revit container file. So you've got, when someone needs some digital thing, they basically have seven possible locations that they might need to go when they're thinking about accessing data. They also have, in this particular case, there are one, two, three, four different places that they might actually have to go look for it. And this is a big part of what the Avail story is about. It's not necessarily just about Revit, and it's not just about a cloud solution. You could swap out Unify with any CMS. You could even just, have Revit's icon there or a Windows File Explorer. It's just a place where people have to go. They have to think about going. They have to know how to use in order to get to things. And from what I'm seeing these days now, the number of applications inside of firms is quite large. It can be up into the hundreds. And the minimum number of file systems that people have inside of a firm of any size is at least two, a corporate file system, and then something that they're renting from Autodesk or something like a OneDrive or SharePoint. So a whole lot of content in a lot of different places. What does any of that actually mean? This is a big topic, and I'll get into this later on. But the cost of the current state inside of any practice it can be hard to quantify, but it's essential for a number of reasons that we'll get into later. but I conduct a lot of surveys as part of our kind of diligence and discovery efforts when we're interacting with firms for the first time, or usually not exactly the first time, but later on down the line. And what I've come to see, no matter how big the firm is, a good average is that a designer, any person inside of a firm, on average, can spend about $4,000 per year just searching for things, right? Just going into the Revit container file, going to Open Asset, going into Windows File Explorer, searching around for things on the network, not finding what they need, and redrawing something or pulling something, going into the internet, going into reference projects, going into their personal stash. They can spend $4,000 per person per year just searching for stuff. Um, and that adds up fast, right? Think about a firm with 100 people. You've got a fairly serious and a business problem just due to that one level of inefficiency. What compounds this is that what occurs after search can be much more expensive and much riskier for the business or for the BIM management, CAD management team. What I hear a lot from firms is that they have a terrible problem with the consistency of their drawings. Their documentation process is a complete mess. And ultimately, what that leads to is a burnout and a lot of opportunity cost. You could be spending your time as BIM managers, CAD managers, designers doing other things, working on design, looking for ways to leverage other types of technology, but instead you're putting out fires that faulty processes or broken systems have just kind of helped invigorate, right? So it's a complicated business problem, and a lot of times is I've heard likened to like um, trying to rebuild the car while you're going 100 miles an hour down the highway. So, what is the end goal for a content management solution like Avail? I broadcast on social media like this is not going to be about features and functionality. We have Avail as a platform. There's a lot of features and functionality. There's a lot of things that you can do. But one of the things that I find from a lot of digital design leaders and design technology leaders, business leaders, is they're looking for ways to reduce errors and omissions. They want to get more people inside these applications and communicating and collaborating around their technical content, their learning resources, their design content. They want a sense of ease when it comes to actually producing their designs and construction documents, and basically, just kind of take the temperature down a little bit when it comes to trying to deliver their work. Um, the other thing that's really important to consider is that the amount of data, in AEC, but just generally in technology, is only going to go, one direction, and that's up and to the right. And the next game-changing, design tool hasn't even been invented yet. Next year, a lot of people are going to be talking about some cool thing that they all want to use and leverage, and how will this work, and what will we do with it? It's probably going to create output, right? And you need to find a way to be able to leverage that output. The other thing that is critical is that storing data anywhere is basically a commodity. It's very inexpensive and it's very easy to do. And a lot of applications will either make you put it in some place that they want you to play it or place it, or highly incentivize you to do so. So, when I said earlier that the minimum number of data locations for a lot of firms is two, that's probably just what it is this year, right? It's going to expand. It's only going to go in one direction. Um, so we'll kind of switch gears a little bit here, and I'd like to talk a little bit about some of the characteristics of firms that I've seen over the years that have succeeded in content management and specifically inside of Avail, and also some of the characteristics where I've seen people have not gotten a great start with it, or have failed is not the right word, but have just kind of like it slipped by them. They weren't able to capitalize on the potential. And the key here for a lot of firms is that they're busy, right? Everybody in the firm is busy. But one thing that's super important, I think, for applications like ours, and generally for this strategy, is that it's a thing that people do. It's there are parts of Avail that automate processes inside of Revit or can help move data from the file system into the app itself. But you have to have owners. You have to have people that have built some of this work, frankly, into their daily list, certainly weekly and monthly. There can be a decent amount of work up front, starts to taper off over time as you build up the actual app itself. But they have owners. It's one of the big characteristics of success. People that do work in the platform. Buy-in on the why. This is referencing a simple question. It's easy to ask, and sometimes it can be hard to answer. Why are we doing this? Why this strategy? Why this particular application? And why now? And they've built that understanding throughout the company. Leadership is invested in the idea. BIM and design technology is invested in the idea, and the design the designer community is invested in the idea. And it doesn't mean everyone. There's always going to be like pockets of people that don't want to adopt a particular technology, and all that's fine. But people are people, right? They're humans. They need to understand why it is that we're doing this and what's in it for them. So some of the more advanced people that I've gotten to meet in some of these firms, and advanced meaning like they're really good at the process of change and change management with people in their firms and getting them to adopt new tools, really focus in sometimes on an individual level, person to person, peer to peer, about why it is that we're doing this. And it doesn't have to be, these big kind of sermons. Sometimes it's just direct, person to person contact. It could be 10 minutes long at someone's desk, but hey, this is why we're doing this, and this is why we'd like for you to pick it up, and we're open for comments, right? But it's just a thing that they built into their communication and outreach internally. The other two characteristics are becoming more and more important as people's awareness and understanding of content management grows. But having a diversity of content in our particular application really matters. So when I go back and I look at data across our very high performing accounts, I see on average about 13. It breaks down into about 13 file types from very common applications like Adobe, Microsoft, Autodesk, and then SketchUp and Rhino, and then you see individual file formats like PDF and JPEG. But they don't just put Revit content in here, Revit families, and then stop. They give people more than one opportunity to think about coming into this application and making it a part of their daily work, right? So think back to that slide at the very beginning about 7 different places that someone has to go to get 7 different types of things, or maybe just one interface that is pointing to all those different locations. So now when they come in and they search for an object, they've got more than one opportunity to actually interact and use the software, right? So it's a big part of ongoing success and adoption across your user base. The last little bullet point, regular updates to interface and processes. I'll talk about the inverse of this here in a moment when we look at some of the characteristics. But like I said earlier on this particular segment, you can't, people have to own this, and they're going to need to do something once in a while. In the beginning, we guide firms through that initial process of helping them curate and strategize around the app. But people are people, and you can't do something and you can't ask someone something one time and then expect them to just pick it up. And you also have to appreciate the fact that it's not always going to be perfect, right? So the more that you update the interface, the more that you're getting feedback from the design community, the more that you're adding to the app itself. I think you'll be setting yourself up for success in the long run. I was tempted to make the whole presentation just about this, about what are the things to watch out for. It's easy for people in my job to stand up in a big room full of people and say, this is why we're the greatest and this is what always works. I think it'd actually be a lot more interesting to hear people say, hey, here's what doesn't work at all. So I've got a little bit of that layered in through here. But I have observed over time some things that some characteristics, some things that people do, companies do, that just doesn't seem to pan out. And that top one is like chasing perfection, is something that, people do. I do it. I know a lot of people in my house that chase perfection. They're waiting, but in a firm context, what that means is what I hear a lot is, well, we're working on the library, and once it's perfect, we're going to distribute it. And rhetorically, I might, ask them, well, if the library is perfect and the process is perfect, then why do you even need this? Uh, there is no there is no perfect library. It will never be done. You will always be working on it. It's alive. People need content all the time. And you can have a very good rounded out library that serves a lot of needs, but it's never finished, right? It can have less work. You can get it to a place where there's less maintenance on it, um, but it will never be done. And the same goes for the interface too. There's a lot of capability to customize the interface, and aspects of it are very important. I agree, and making it a nice environment that their design community will appreciate and want to use is one of the big differentiation points and selling propositions, for our software. But it will never be perfect, and it will never be finished. We're always going to add new things, and you'll always think of things in a slightly different way, and new people will come in. So don't people hold on to perfect when they could just get it out and make adjustments over time. Um, a one and done implementation I would describe as an individual or individuals that get the primary use case, we'll just say Revit families, into a channel, organized, put a note out on Teams and say, the Revit library is ready, go get it. And then that's it. Um, that is a recipe for failure. I've not seen it work well, either in other implementations of other CMS systems, and potentially not in ours either, because what this is all about what this is all about is, people, and getting people to do something and pick something up, try something for the first time, or repeatedly do something, build a habit. And if you ever read about these types of things, there's just no way to build a habit reliably, especially with a lot of people, by just saying, oh, I'm going to go do this once and then my life will change forever. um, People need to be reminded, and if you're administering this, you need to be reminding yourself and everyone else, hey, this is how we're going to be doing this. And it completely relates to that third bullet point, which is, failing to communicate why it is that we're doing this. Because like I said, this is about people, this is about behavior, this is about change management, and getting people to do something new reliably, consistently, takes practice. You got to do it over and over and over again, and people need to understand why. um, I do see there's a note in the chat. Yeah, Laura, actually, it's from Laura. I was gonna say, just drop questions in there, if you want, along the way, and I'm happy to answer them as we go along. Uh, I'm really good at just talking and letting it roll, but I'm
You're
sure there'll be
awesome.
some. Okay. Um, all right. Soft costs. So what does this mean? Um, there's the price of a tool. There's a price of software. It should be, in my opinion, easy for salespeople to quantify how much it costs. Right? Someone should be able to tell you, this is how much my XYZ thing costs. But there's a whole other component to this, which is what are the soft costs? How much does it cost to trial a software? How much is it going to cost me to onboard? And what is a success program like? And we'll tie some of these thoughts all together back at the end. But sometimes these are underappreciated, and they are misunderstood. Maybe they're not quantified or represented at all, but this exists, right? And so what we've tried to do is develop programs that help keep these soft costs at a minimum, not only for us, but for you, and also give people a pretty smooth experience in managing not only your expectations, but potentially your boss's expectations, and make sure that everybody is moving together, us and our prospective customers at the same time, hopefully the same place. So uh, trialing software has been an evolutionary process for me. And I think that it's something that we've actually gotten very good at over the years. There are three ways that I have seen people trial Avail. They use the free version for a period of time. They buy individual licenses of our product. If you go to our pricing page, you'll see a free version, a version called Avail, and then you'll see a version called Enterprise. So free version is fairly self-explanatory. The Avail version is just single seats. People, firms, sometimes large firms will buy, 10, 15, 20 seats of those and use the app for a year inside of a specific studio or team or project before they make a commitment for a larger purchase. Um, it can be very effective. And then the third way that people trial this software is they engage with us in a little consultative process that we have. And you put that right before a larger, software purchase and rollout. Um, Using the free version is an okay way to try the software. It's a great way to get started. If you're actually serious about implementing this as a strategy, I would strongly recommend that you look at the other two options. You can always start with the free version, but once this gets serious and you want to put this in a budget and actually consider deploying it, you need to use all of the features. And it would be good for you to allow us to consult with you on what the possible output is, right? So just some observations I've had over the years. But again, ask yourself and ask people in the firm, why are we doing this? Why do we want to go down this route with this particular type of strategy, with this particular tool, or making a selection from a couple of different tools? Um, Quantify your current state as best you can. I am a person that gets asked for ROI documentation all the time. And I've got some calculations that I'm happy to provide people to do it. But this is an exercise that you all and that the firm needs to undertake. And it doesn't have to be a McKinsey level report about the cost of your current state. I've got very basic surveys that I provide people with when they need them, that just ask simple questions out into the design community. How often do you, download content from the internet? How often are you pulling content from past projects? How often do you pull content from your C drive, from your personal stash? It's basic things like that that help you arrive at the cost of your current state. This will be very important in the last little slide, the last little segment when we're talking about content catalog or any free solution. And then lastly, the process that we have designed has actually been put together over the years from formal and informal collaboration with firms that have trialed the software with us. So it's something that's evolved over time. But one thing that I've noticed, and I'll pick on designers here a little bit on behalf of all of our BIM manager friends, is that designers will come to the BIM team and say, can't find content. I have a hard time, getting to the library that you're setting up for this. Can you help? Can you help me? Can you help us? The BIM team goes, yes, we'd love to do that. They go out and they vet solutions, right? They request demos from software vendors. They get excited. Technologists get excited about technology, right? They come up, we set up a trial, we do some work with the BIM team. They could spend, several hours with us, 4, 5, 6 hours of their time, getting content into the application and, getting it looking nice and getting everything ready. And then they send it out to the design team that they've asked, will you participate in a trial of the software? And everybody says yes. And then inevitably the designers are too busy to actually participate in the trial for the solution that they asked for. So it's not anybody's fault. I will say that it happens kind of regularly. but I think people are just busy and everyone's waiting for this like magical moment when they're not as busy. But it kind of doesn't really come. And if it does, people actually do want to take a break. They don't want to like actually learn how to use a new piece of software. So what we've had to do over the time, or what we've found has started to work, is build in a different type of program where there's a little bit of we break it down into smaller bites, basically. So there's opportunities to train not only the publishing team, but there's opportunities to train and get feedback from the designers, the testers, as we're actually moving through the process. And lastly, and most important, if you're familiar with the acronym, you have got to keep these things simple. You cannot devise, and we cannot devise with you this elaborate scheme or testing criteria. You can do a lot of things in Avail, and you can test a lot of things in Avail, and you can make sure that you vetted it against how you've quantified your current state. But we just have to be cognizant and aware of the fact that you're asking busy people to do something new for potentially the first time. So you got to get in that headspace a little bit and make sure that you've devised a system and a trial process that actually conforms with people's, um, time and schedule, and just kind of like mental fatigue from having to do a whole lot of things all the time. Um, so the other big soft cost center, is around actually onboarding. So I guess I should throw also kind of plug our process here a little bit. Um, we've run this through 5 firms recently, and 4 of them actually ended up, buying and implementing the software. And that's great. But I'm equally as proud of the fact that one firm went through the process and chose not to implement the software. And that's really what this is about. This is a workflow tool. This is something that people have to use in order to decide if it's worth their time and money to invest in. I am a decent presenter, but I'm not the greatest presenter in the world, and there's no amount of me showing this to people that will have them say, yes, this is something we want to support in our firm, unless of course they've had a previous experience with it or just very comfortable with the overall idea. But what we have tried really hard to do, with our trial process, is eliminate maybe. Um, we always make it very clear at the very beginning. There are 2 good answers that you can provide inside of this trial process, and it's either yes or no. And what we don't want to do is just spend a whole lot of time together and go, maybe we like this, and that's why we've made this adjustments to actually get feedback from the design community, designers, as we're going along. That's usually where maybe comes from, when you can't get that feedback that you want from the end users, right? So hard transition back into onboarding. Um, Perhaps I don't have a direct quote, or I can't give you exactly who told me this, but a digital practice leader for a large firm in Chicago told me one time, Will, it's not the cost of your software. That's not where the risk is. It's the desktops. It's the desktops, the number of desktops, right? And what he means is that, comparing the cost of Avail to his overall IT budget is not it wasn't a problem. That's not where he felt the real challenge was. It was actually getting people to pick up the app and use it on a daily basis, right? So that's where the actual risk is. So how we arrive at the end game with our customers is what really matters. And so we actually start that thinking and we start that communication in a trial period, and then we carry it forward to this onboarding program that we've also developed, over time with feedback from our customers. But that getting people to that promised land, and getting and helping you help your designers build those habits is what this is all about. And onboarding and then ongoing customer success are a big part of that. And I kind of liken it to like my mother-in-law just bought a new dishwasher, and everybody was kind of grousing over the cost of it because it was $1,000. And it's like, well, yeah, that's might be an expensive dishwasher, but your cost per use on that thing is actually like practically nothing, right? That's the same way with an application like this. If people use this, once a week, once a month, it pays for itself like extremely fast. If nobody ever uses it, it'll be a boat anchor, right? So that's what you want to try to avoid. Um, Macro ideas on who's a good fit for Avail. Sometimes people say, "Oh, this is a tool for large firms, people that have dedicated BIM." Um, Part of that is true, um, but any firm, like I said in the beginning, I've helped one person buy this. I've helped teams of 5 or 10 implement Avail, and then I've helped the biggest firms in the world buy and implement Avail. You don't have to have a dedicated BIM manager to be good at this. You just have to have a person that's willing to put in some time. So as long as that's there, then there's a real good chance that you can pick up a tool like this and have it work. And the first 2 points there are really related to one another. Somebody or somebodies, we kind of like to see more than one person, at least two, championing the use of Avail. Um, and think about if we could go back to the very first slide there with that little mini case study, there was Revit content, there was 3D design content, and then there was like kind of like marketing and presentation style content. There's 3 opportunities to have different champions inside of the actual application itself so that they can deliver and administer that content to out to their user base that they are responsible for, right? So that's why having more than one champion is valuable. It's going to increase your chances of success by having more content in the application. It also gives the business a sense of continuity. You know, there can be turnover, right? And so it's important to have a number of people invested in this so that they understand what to do in case a key member of the team leaves. Um, the third bullet point here, the job to be done, I put that in quotes. It's an actual phrase or term out in the business and marketing world, the jobs to be done theory. Great way to it's a great framework to understand work and software, I think. But Avail excels as a distribution platform. So if your job to be done is I need a good way to get my content out to my design community at large, Avail can be your amplifier. That's the fourth bullet point there. You alone or you and your colleagues have a process, you have workflow, you have content, and you just need a great way to deliver this out across a large, medium, small, doesn't matter, customer base, your designers, then this software will really deliver that. There are a lot of things, it is a true platform and it can provide a lot of opportunities. But it really excels and really shines when firms are trying to deliver, large sets of complicated data out to large groups of people. Um, Not so great fit. So again, this is like, in that same line of thinking as with one of the earlier slides, companies that, when we get to the end of the trial process and people say no, why are they saying no? That's really what I was, trying to think through and trying to have conversation about or desiring to have a conversation about, because I think it's equally as important for a lot of companies. And we've had a lot of great firms, engage with us and said, this just isn't the right solution for me. And part of it is that jobs to be done idea. Their job to be done, their jobs to be done are they are looking for solutions that provide a full suite of Revit processing capabilities. There's a lot of different types of things that might need to be done to Revit content, right? Like writing parameter data back into files, not something that Avail currently does, right? Embedded, baked into the application itself. Um, Content request workflows, different things like that. There's things that will probably be added into the app over time, but when you're trying to satisfy immediate need, right? Like 30, 60 days out, that type of processing and some of those baked in features that are not necessarily in an open platform like ours tends to be, are reasons where people look at this and they go, this just isn't for us. Avail's world can be big. People can put a lot of content, a lot of data in here, and they might look at that and go, this just isn't the route that we're going to go. We need, a simpler tool that provides a narrower set of opportunities. We want to manage Revit families in a couple of, a small library of typical details, and that's where we want to stop. There are less expensive versions of Avail that could do that, but frankly, there are just other applications that might be better suited for a narrow use, a smaller use case like that. And then lastly, I've seen some efforts fail over time where they don't really truly have champions. They are trying to do content management and library management by committee, and there's no true owner. There's no individual or group of people that the firm could point to and go, these are the two people that are in charge, and everything begins and ends with them. It's a group effort, and I understand the mentality, but it over time, over at scale and over time, I do think you need to have somebody that's in charge that everybody can go to and rely on for the strategy and how to implement properly. So, um, all right. Uh, I have, well, this is kind of like the close to the end here. But people have been asking me this, they've been asking Randall this for about a year and a half now. And they do it for fun. I frequently would joke with people and say, why would I know that? They did not call Autodesk did not call and ask me and give me any inside information. But I think they just want to know our opinion and what we think an acquisition like that is like and what it's going to mean for the market. Um, Personally, I think it's fantastic. I think that the actual problem that is trying to be solved is inefficiency in architecture and engineering firms. It's not, is Avail the best solution? Is Content Catalog the best solution? Um, we are not enemies, right? The common enemy is inefficiency, and businesses will decide through their workflow and how they quantify their current state what the best solution is for them in that time, right? But the more a company like Autodesk talks about inefficiency in BIM workflows, I think the better it is for everyone, right? Because they're going to raise that level of awareness and allow everyone to make decisions that are meaningful for them. So, yeah, I personally think it's great, right? Um, the second bullet point naturally follows the first one. Why and it's really like, why would I pay for this? But I say this um all the time, that free is a price point. That's all it is. Avail has a free version of the product. Avail has always had a free version of the product. And there are firms that use the free version of the product every day, and they're all over the world, right? And some large teams that actually use the free version of a product because it fits their particular use case, what it is that they're trying to do, right? So it doesn't, what a free price point, what a free product doesn't do is it doesn't encapsulate, it doesn't describe the cost of the work, right? So a lot of times people will go, why would I pay for Avail when I could get Content Catalog for free? And I have to remind them that's not the that's not the correct benchmark. You should not look at the price points of any particular product and go, this one is more than that one. You can, but you just can't stop there. You have to go back and you have to quantify the cost of your current state. And then you can compare that against any particular solution in the market. And we may not be the right answer. You may look, you may go back and you may survey your design community, and you may survey, other design technologists or even business leadership, and you may get answers back, and it may say, we want a we need an easy way to get to Revit families, right? I would stop right then and there. You could use ours for that, or you could use Content Catalog for that, or you could decide, hey, this isn't really worth putting my time into at all, because those soft costs actually need to be included in the calculation as well, right? So you may arrive at, hey, the current state is actually cheap compared to the amount of work that we need to do to get people into this new thing. So it's a complicated thing to go through, but it's an important process. And I think only once anybody has successfully benchmarked the cost of their current state can they go out and look at any particular application and then make a sound, articulated business argument about why any one solution is the correct solution that serves their particular needs. We'll kind of wrap on this, and then I'll leave it open to any questions or comments that anyone has. But what is the point of all this? And I've always been confused. I'll admit that I was confused by Charlie's quote at first, but over time I've started to appreciate it more and more and more. Design firms and designers in particular love to design. I'm married to one, so I know what that's like and how much time she can spend agonizing over something when I might look at it and go, "You have lost your mind," and these are slightly different shades of gray, and I can't tell anymore. But it's just something that designers like to do, and they want to communicate the intent and make a good design for their client. But the process of putting out accurate and consistent construction documents can be a complete resource, vortex. And so when you think about those two things together, that's where a solution and a strategy like content management really comes into play. And what I think this quote is about for a lot of firms is you can spend a lot of time on design, so much to the point where you might lose a little bit of money on the project doing it, but you can't also lose in the construction document phase. You need that to be accurate. You need that to be smooth. It can't be chaos and it can't be inconsistent. So that's where solutions like this really fill that hole so that you can spend time doing the things that you really like and want to do, which is actually producing, high quality design for your clients. So,
Will,
yes,
LPA is AIA's 2025 Design Firm of the Year. So I like to think that we helped give them back some of that time to we'll have to ask Charlie if that's true, but congratulations to
this
them
is true.
for, yeah, but they've been a
Yeah.
great customer for many years. Yeah.
I'll leave this up here. You can reach out to me individually. I enjoy talking to people about this. So, and try to give people as much information as they possibly can when it comes to trying to decide, is this solution right for you or not. Never understood why people in my role want to conceal information, around pricing or terms or how this works or what's good or what's bad. It makes no sense to me. I try to work in sales in a way that I appreciate when I try to buy products. And when people withhold things from me or treat me like I don't know what I'm talking about, it drives me crazy. So I prefer to give you guys enough information to decide. So you can reach out to me. You can come to our website. We've got webinars throughout the year. You meet us at trade shows and different things like that. But yeah, would love to meet you and hear more about what you think this means for your particular organization. So I will pause there for a second. And then if we don't have any questions, we could either wrap or I could maybe turn the mic over to Randall and he could, maybe show you guys 2 minutes of what it is that we're working on. If I could put him on the spot, uh, we'll see. I'll give a minute or two for any questions to come in.
What do you want me to talk about or show?
Yeah, I was going to say, are there one or two things that you might want to show off? You don't have to if you don't want to. If you weren't prepared, I totally dropped that on you. Um,
Uh, I'll just verbalize it. And then if anybody that's on the call would like to see something, they can drop into the chat. But, you know, behind the scenes of Avail, you can think about Avail. I often describe it as a vertical search engine inside of a company's firewall. So it's ultimately a search engine that's trying to help you get to information and content. And so search is always a big part of what we're doing and what we're thinking about. And And the technologies to accomplish that are changing all the time. So we try to stay healthily kind of ahead of those curves as new technologies are available. So like many people, we're experimenting and working with a lot of the new AI and ML technologies, large language models in front of data. So we've been working on integration of chatbots. In fact, the latest version of Avail 5.0 that is just recently released is has the first chatbot integrated into it. Our actual help system is the first content that's kind of integrated with an internal chatbot to the application now. And you can ask questions about how to do different kinds of things in Avail. But outside of that, we're also learning about that. It's part of our process of learning about how that technology can be used, how it fits, and what are the different applications. So we're also experimenting with customers on other types of content and how Avail can be where should these kind of large language models and searching and talking to documents kind of fit. I was just sitting here while Will was doing that. I've been experimenting with full sets of specifications as an example in your design documents and being able to chat and talk and ask questions. So we're always experimenting and then trying to figure out where, with our customers' help, this fits into the workflow. So there's a bunch of that work going on along with search. A lot of our customers are using Avail to manage everything around their Revit workflows, and details are a big part of that. So we've been working on doing full text search of those details. So not just being able to search on names of files or ways that you might have tagged that kind of information or content, but actually being able to search all the way down into any kind of text that ends up on not just a detail, but even full sheets, any kind of text. So that's in the process of being integrated into the platform right now of things that we're working on. And then the big thing that we are working on moving into 2025 is this idea that, and we've kind of always had this as a mantra, it's just taken us several years, and we're always obviously working on new features and trying to promote some of our own ideas and taking feedback and input from customers and working on it. But we've always had this thought that content should come to the user. So you can think about they go into Avail and perform searches and as a way of kind of pulling that content forward. But we're actually progressing that thought even further, and we're working on what we call workspaces, which are around a project context. And we think we're in a great position to be able to actually dynamically bring content to the user based on what they're doing. And that'll start at a project type level, but might be all the way down to a room, type of room, and all the way down to individual users and the preference for the kind of content that they've typically designed with or used in the past to do certain design work with. So you can think about as you get your libraries and all of your content libraries built, it's one thing to make that accessible by people, but it's another to go ahead and leverage access to that and pull forward the content that they're likely going to want to use. So you can think about that in form in Revit world about what you might stuff into a template for a start of a building type. We're going to be doing that all dynamically though. So a lot of exciting things on the way. It's using a lot of analytics and machine learning and techniques on the back end to be able to dynamically surface content and bring it to the user. And we think that ultimately it's about reducing the work. It's about trying to get the right information to them just in time at the right time. So a lot of the work that we're doing is around that front. So
While we were chatting here, Jeremy asked a question. Are you familiar with CMMC requirements, and is Avail compliant with the new regulations for security that are rolling out? So, um, always a big topic with our customer base. Um, we probably want to review this requirements directly with you, but I have, I have personally, and in conjunction with Randall, we've worked with all manner of cybersecurity regulations and compliance, for federal government contractors, um, projects that they are allowed to talk about and projects that they are not allowed to talk about. And I've even worked with the actual Department of Defense on procuring AVAIL for the Army Corps of Engineers. So we've I won't say that we've seen it all, but we're very versed in interacting with cybersecurity teams and helping you guys figure out, is this going to fit with your particular program and the needs that you guys have as a business.
Very diplomatic there.
I think that worked better than just saying, yeah, that's easy.
Yeah, one of the, just to kind of build on that, one of the somewhat, I think, unique approaches that Avail's taken other than other solutions is, and I think a larger reason that a lot of larger firms have chosen to use Avail as their platform of choice is that we don't have to take possession of your content. So we've kind of had a let content rest where it needs to rest or wants to rest. So there's all kinds of requirements that our different clients have about where on their data security, about where their information wants to reside. Doesn't mean that there's not information that's in Avail, but there is a lot of solace whenever we are having conversations with security teams and IT teams about the security of Avail. And you make a huge leap forward when you say that content is never leaving your network, that those files are not leaving your network. There is metadata that's used to do searches, and we do specialized things with abstracting thumbnails so that you can see nice visuals in the interface, but the actual data and files stay at rest wherever you've decided that those need to stay at rest. So that's helped a lot of our customers actually implement Avail in places that other solutions that do take possession of your content weren't able to tread. But there's a lot of nuance, and it depends on what the requirement is. We've also stood up complete, there's at least parts of the solution that are cloud-based. We are using a search engine that lives in a centralized cloud location. Our stack is in the Amazon AWS stack. But we have also stood up completely kind of isolated instances of Avail for clients who had very specialized kinds of requirements that called for that. So those can be expensive to do. It's not number one on my list of things that I want to go do, but we do have those kinds of capabilities.
You guys, a couple more seconds to ask any questions. And then I think we can call it a day, maybe. I hope this was informative. I personally have not delivered a webinar in quite a while, so it was fun on my end.
Be great. Well,
thank you.
you're no
We'll
pro.
send out the we'll send out the we'll send out the movie later on to everybody. Um, but yeah, I don't know. We're not getting anything else in here, so call it quits and give you 6 minutes of your day back. But appreciate you all for coming, and hope to talk to you soon. Thank you.
Thanks.